Hi guys. So today I'm in Lisbon, and the video of today will be a bit different from my usual ones because it's gonna be on the ground, and today I'm recording this at 2:30 p.m. I think, because there was a change of hours and also changed time zone, so I don't even know what time it is actually. And I'm recording this on a Sunday, and I will publish it right away. So I'm currently like on a beachy area. Can you see something or not, actually? I don't know. Anyway, I'm recording this like here. I will film the content, which is actually about Portugal. And then I will edit it right away in a bar or something. And then I will publish it. And yeah, maybe it's going to be also a fun experiment with regards to vlogging or things like that. Sometimes when I talk about places, to live or be based in as a developer, software engineer in Europe, in a lot of these places I actually travel to myself, or I lived myself. So I might do some things like on the street, like just like this. But okay, since I don't want this to be boring and useless, I will also cut to the chase and go to the actual content, which is how does Portugal and Lisbon perform as a remote worker destination. So actually it is a city that has some pros and some cons. All in all, it's quite good in my opinion. So I will just highlight some of its features, and then you can see if it is worth it for you or not. But all in all, it's a pretty good deal. Not perfect, of course, because there is no perfect location. But I think it has a lot going for it. And in particular, some good things about it is that it is relatively low-cost location. Portugal in general, and also Lisbon for being a European capital. More or less, it is the price of Poland, both across the country. So Poland versus Portugal, and also cities like Lisbon and Warsaw. More or less, it's the same price. Maybe Lisbon is slightly more expensive than Warsaw, maybe 10% more expensive. Both cities have grown their prices quite a bit in the past few years, especially real estate. The real estate prices in Warsaw and Lisbon are similar nowadays to some location in Western Europe. So yeah, maybe not the most expensive one, but some locations like Madrid or Berlin, real estate prices are similar, and even cost of living is not too far off. So these are not cheap locations, but they are pretty good at the same time. They offer a pretty good lifestyle, convenience, services, are developed places nowadays. So this is good. The price is not too low, but also the quality of what you get is not too low. I hope it's not going to be too windy, but yeah. So also one thing I can already say that about the lifestyle in Portugal and Lisbon is that compared to other Southern European countries, it's a bit more windy, a bit more rusty. The sea is a bit more wavy. It's the ocean. And it's not the same as, Greece or south of Italy or places like this. So this is worth mentioning as well. And okay, what I was talking about was the cost and of living, which is not too high, and the quality and abundance of services, which nowadays it's relatively developed, more or less at Western European standards. Taxes can be optimized. In Portugal, there is the NHR. Now there is NHR 2.0. So you can Google that and read about it. But basically, if you are a foreigner, you can get some discounts on foreign income and even on local income. And all in all, you can end up paying like less than 30% total tax, including social security as an employee. And if you work as a freelancer, like a B2B, you can also pay little. You can pay even less, actually. Like if you open a company yourself, then you can deduct a lot of expenses. And if you don't make much more than 100K, you can probably bring down your total tax rate to below 15%, as far as I understood. Like I talked to a guy who has a company and works as a developer, and he works as a B2B. So he builds basically his employer as a company, like his own company. He has a company in Portugal. He builds the client, which is the company that hires him. And basically, he deducts a lot of costs like car, rent, and stuff like this. And then he pays himself a minimal salary, minimal income salary. So he pays very little tax on it. And then the rest of the compensation, he pays himself with a bonus. And then on bonus, like apparently you don't pay social security, you only pay income tax. So all in all, he has, I think, below 10% tax, which is pretty good. And it's harder to do this in other Southern European places. So if you want to live in Southern Europe and not pay a lot of taxes, Portugal is quite an exception in this sense. In Spain, you have the Beckham law, which is a bit tricky and not as good, but can also be acceptable. In Italy, you also have some tax incentives. In France too, but Portugal is a bit better, all in all, tax-wise. And so these are some good things about it. The weather, it's typical of Southern Europe, pretty sunny. Mostly today it's March, late March, and the weather is pretty sunny, pretty warm. And in winter, it's mild, but at the same time, it's also quite humid. You have a lot of humidity, and the houses are not super insulated. So actually, me personally, I'm more cold in Southern Europe in winter than in places like Poland, for example, because the heating is completely different, and how the houses are built is completely different. I'm actually much warmer in Switzerland or in Poland than in Southern Europe during winter. I come from a seaside town in Italy. And in winter, it's crazy for me. Like it's very humid, and that's just something to think about. Because people say Southern Europe is warm, you can escape winter. In my opinion, is like half true. It's not completely true. Then Lisbon and Portugal in general, they have very good food. The Portuguese cuisine is excellent, in my opinion. A lot of seafood, a lot of meat, not so much vegetables, but good fruits. And in places like Lisbon, it's nowadays a very cosmopolitan city, and there is a lot of Brazilian, especially, even like Italian, French. So you find a lot of options here for dining. I think in Warsaw you have a bit more, maybe more diverse set of cuisine, but here you have more local, and the local cuisine in Portugal is quite good, better than the local Polish one, I would say. Depends on your taste, of course. If you like sour cream and soups, then maybe Polish cuisine is better. If you like, other kinds of stuff, like seafood in particular, here is very good. But also meat is quite good for a seaside country. They have really good meat as well. Restaurants, bars, and so on, they are quite nice. I would say comparable to Warsaw, better than a place like Zurich, for sure. Much more options, more affordable. I think going out, if you go to very fancy places in Lisbon, is a bit more expensive than Warsaw. Like if you go to a fancy cocktail bar, for example, in Warsaw, you can get it for maybe 8 to 12 euros. Like if you don't drink any special, expensive tequila or champagne or whatever. And here the price is a bit higher. Maybe it's like 12 to 18 can be. I paid like some cocktails some time ago here, more than 16, 17. So it can get a bit more price if you go to the very fancy places. But if you go, there are a lot of like local places which are not fancy, but super nice. And these ones here are not so expensive. So that's something to keep in mind. With regards to jobs, like I say, Portugal is a good location for remote workers. But if you need or might want to have access to local jobs, then it's terrible. It's one of the worst places in Europe. The local jobs, they don't pay a lot. There are some American companies starting to have office here, but not a lot. It's very far from Poland. Like, Poland, you would getting a 6-figure job in Poland nowadays. It's quite achievable in tech. It's quite impressive how achievable it is. And here it's almost a mirage. Like it's quite hard, to be honest. It's a bit easier than in Italy, but we are talking about bottom places in Europe for a local job salary. There's these birds here. Hope they don't attack me. But so that's something to keep in mind. The safety, I would say, it's pretty good for being Western Europe and Southern Europe. It's safer for sure than a city like Paris or London or even Madrid or Barcelona. It's quite safe. Although it is getting a bit less safe because, all these places in Western Europe which attract a lot of tourists and a lot of, let's say, immigrants. It's not a great combination because, there is a lot of people without jobs, maybe like a mass immigration without jobs. And here it's a bit better than in other places, but still you have a lot of like people with no jobs or maybe poor people, and then you have a lot of tourists, and then these poor people without a job might want to take the money from the rich tourists, and this creates some level of petty criminality and so on. I heard that there is also a bit of gang being imported by immigrants from Latin America, from Brazil in particular here. So maybe you have a bit of that, but I think all in all, if you mind your business, it's not an unsafe place, I would say. For sure, safer than Barcelona. And all in all, even Barcelona is not that dangerous. So yeah, it's not comparable to Warsaw though, for example. Like in Warsaw, really, you never see anything crazy in the street. You never see someone, I don't know, here, for example, I arrived yesterday, yesterday was Saturday. I bought this ticket last minute, actually on Friday night, because I have an apartment here, and tomorrow I need to take care of some stuff. And so I had to book last minute, and that's why I'm here, basically. But yeah, yesterday I arrived in the evening, and I don't know, I was asked in the center, like, if I wanted hashish or cocaine, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 times. In Warsaw, I've been going there for 2 years, week trips and month trips, and sometimes, and they never got asked that. And so it's quite different. You don't have drug addicts on the streets, people that look shady. Like, it's really clean. I don't know how they manage to do this, but they really do. It is as good or even better than Switzerland, in my opinion, in terms of safety. So it's not comparable. Like, if you're comparing this thing, there it's you have it better, and a few other places in Central Europe also are better than here, like Czech Republic, Prague. I think it's also a bit better in that sense. So all in all, this is kind of like an overview. I think for remote workers, it's one of the best places in Europe for all the things I mentioned. If you want to have access to local jobs, maybe there are better options. Spain has more availability of high-paying jobs than Portugal. So if you want to live in Southern Europe as a software developer and you want to work remotely, but you also want to have the options to have high-paying local jobs, then Spain is better. But if you're fully remote, maybe you have your own business or you just work only with remote jobs, then here it's good. And that's why I was giving it a look also for myself. I'm still based in Zurich, but since I have now this remote business, let's say, I'm exploring a few destinations, and Portugal was one of the ones I looked at recently. I'm still not too convinced on the country itself, because, for example, with my apartment here, that I can talk more in another video if you're interested, I bought a rental property that I rent and so on, but what I experienced was a lot of inefficiencies and lack of professionalism in some of the people that I worked with here. And so this is kind of like part of what you would get here, right? Like, this is Southern Europe, and it's a bit inefficient in a way, like it's a bit of a slower pace of life, which can be good, can be relaxing, but also can be annoying if you need to get things done. It's a bit harder here compared to, let's say, to Poland, for example, or maybe Czech Republic or other places in the area, or Switzerland, where there is a more hard-working culture and more high pace. It's a bit hard. It's a bit better to get things done. So this is something I don't like here a lot. And also the winter, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of winter in Southern Europe. The houses gets cold, kind of. In summer, it gets very crowded. Maybe if you live a bit in a suburb of Lisbon, could be nice, with not too many tourists and maybe a bit more green spaces. And have like a mosquito or something. It could be a bit better. It can be good all in all, but I'm not sure. One thing that it's good here is the geopolitical safety, let's say, compared to Poland. Like, you are quite far from this heated up area of Europe right now, which is a concern at the end of the day. It is a manageable risk. You can check an article that I posted recently about geo-arbitrage on my newsletter, and there I mentioned a little bit how this risk actually is manageable in the end. It's not zero, but it's manageable, and it's comparable to other risks that you have in life at the end of the day. But I mean, if you want to be in a place where you know that it's quite unlikely that you will have anything related to that in the coming years, here it's for sure better. It's as west as it gets in Europe. So yeah, even if the situation there heats up with Russia attacking the Baltics or Poland or I don't know, Scandinavia, Finland or Moldova, Here you are quite far from there. But on the other hand, it's a small country. It's a poor country at the end of the day. There is a lot of immigrants, both rich and poor. And the rich ones, they make the things more unaffordable for the locals. The poor ones maybe bring in some crime, and then the locals also gets more desperate because they are poor. So you need to watch out for these things. Like in a lot of places like this in Europe, there is a surge in right-wing politics. And I think in these areas of Europe, you don't have the geopolitical risks like Russian stuff, but you have higher risk of like civil wars actually, or like social tensions and crimes and things like this. If you look at the UK, for example, right now, or Germany, sometimes in some cases it gets even violent. So, and in Poland, you don't have this risk. The society is very cohesive, and so you don't have this type of risk, which here you might have. Anyway, I think this was a big rant, a bit of an experiment. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you want to know more about real estate here. It can be interesting, but yeah, maybe it's a topic for another video. Let me know if you're interested. Bye-bye.